Welcome everybody to our game preview. Adam, we've been talking about Cincinnati all week, and so we're going to finally preview this game with the Bearcats. The Buffs go from Wildcats to Bearcats, so a different type of cat this week. But we're going to chat about this one and just preview the game. And what are your thoughts? As this week has gone along? Has your thoughts changed about this game, or kind of what are you thinking going into this day?
I think the main thing that stands out about this week is just as long as Colorado keeps winning, there seems to be so much on the line going into these football games. And
Yeah,
now you've got a football game at Folsom Field on family weekend. We don't love the start time, but like we said earlier this week, you just got to embrace it. Like, let's reframe
yeah,
this. Let's have a positive attitude going in this. Brian, one of these teams is going to leave Folsom Field on Saturday, bowl eligible.
yeah.
And there's quite a bit of season left to play. So that's kind of a fun note for this game. It is kind of this weird feeling. I felt it with UCF. I feel it again this week where it just does not feel like a conference game. Going down to Tucson,
Right.
Colorado's recent history with Arizona, that's natural. Kansas State, Baylor, same thing. But this is again, okay, this is a conference game. All right, all right. And so let's do some research on Cincinnati because frankly, Scott Satterfield, I knew about him from App State and obviously at Louisville, but didn't know a whole ton about this team. So it's kind of learning a little bit more about them. But again, kind of going back to my initial point, it's indicative of what Coach Prime has built in Colorado that we feel with each of these previews. It's such an important game for Colorado.
Yeah, it really is. And uh, both of these teams, I think they profile very similar in a lot of ways. And but the big one is that both of them were projected in the bottom, six of the conference coming into this year. CU 11th, Cincinnati, I think 14th, and now here they are. The winner's going to be bowl eligible, and both are going to be bowl eligible at some point. They're coming in at 5-2, and Scott Satterfield was asked this week about. Playing for a Big 12 title, and he didn't shy away from it. He said, "Yeah, we're going for that." And he said the same thing you just said, that the stakes keep getting higher every week, and that there's a lot on the line, and there really is. And so it's sort of crazy when you look at the preseason, what people thought of these teams. That these two teams are right now playing to stay in contention in the Big 12 title race.
Yeah, no question. It's a very solid football team.
Yeah,
And I thought Coach Prime did a really good job of succinctly kind of fitting this team into a quick quote of saying they're not going to beat themselves. They're not super flashy, but they have a quarterback that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And
yeah,
that's a big difference, I think, from last year. Emory Jones, he made a lot of plays at Florida, at Arizona State, and last year at Cincinnati, but his turnovers came at really costly moments for the
yeah,
Bearcats last year and was a big part of why they weren't as successful. The other thing, kind of going off the Satterfield thing, is that I don't think he's gotten any criticism for the way he rebuilt that team, but it
right.
was in a very similar mold to what Coach Prime did. Maybe not quite to the numbers, but he also didn't take over a football team that went 1-11 the season before, had the worst scoring margin in college football. He took over a team that was more successful, had more stable footing, and they still had a lot to work through to get that program back on solid footing. And he did that. And credit to him. It's not a criticism, but it's just kind of it shows the kind of the lack of consistency, I think, with some of the criticism about portal and how you're
Yeah,
going to build your program because they really had to do it in a similar way. Not maybe again the numbers are maybe not the same, but they're very high for
yeah.
rebuilding a team, and it's worked out for them. This is the new. This is again another signal of the new era of college football when you have a new coach taking over.
Yeah, 25, I believe it is. When I did my summer preview on Cincinnati, it was 25 additions they had in the portal, 25 losses, 25 additions, and one of them being Brendan Sorsby, the quarterback. And it's an interesting. I think we're all still trying to figure out what this portal thing is settling into, and what it looks like. And there's some ramifications. And just a quick thing to get off of this game is, I tweeted out last night that the new roster came out. There's three guys that are no longer on the Colorado roster. Tyler Johnson, Johnny Chaney, and who's the other one? Oh, Yakiri Walker. Those are three transfer guys that, all came in here probably thinking they were going to play. And that's one of the, I guess, negative things of the transfer is they all come in here. A lot of these veterans come in here thinking this is an opportunity I'm going to play. And then when you don't, they leave. And so that's kind of the hard thing with the transfer portal, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for Colorado specifically, Brian, with those three guys, I would say I feel very confidently all three of them got a fair shake at things.
Yeah. Right.
And Coach Prime is very, very transparent with you got to show up in practice and earn it.
Right.
And if you don't do that, then you're not going to play here. And so I don't really feel bad. They came in with every opportunity to win a starting job, and
Yeah.
it is shocking. Johnson on the offensive line, we all penciled him in as a starter. It's when he committed, he was maybe on paper the most impressive offensive line commit they got through the portal, and so.
Right.
I guess that goes to prove that you're not going to bat 1,000, and there are sometimes reasons why guys transfer, and a lot of times it's somebody that is looking for a better opportunity and they seize that. Sometimes it's a guy that just wants things handed to them and maximize their NIL. And, with those, I'm not putting that on those three guys, but they had their opportunities. They didn't capitalize. And so I don't really necessarily feel bad towards that.
Yeah, I don't either, and I'm not blaming a team or anything like that. It's just I think it's one of those disappointing things, or one of those, I guess, negative things about the portal era is that you're going to have things like that. The system is set up to where, you're going to lose some of these guys in the middle of the season because
Yeah.
they're disappointed with their playing time, and so they're I'm out, And I think bigger picture for Colorado is Tyler Johnson, Ikiri Walker, none of those guys played, right? I think it was four snaps from scrimmage combined, those three guys played. But when I look at I guess what could be a longer term impact is more at linebacker. I mean,
Mhm.
they're suddenly thin at
Yeah.
linebacker. And, we know we've written a lot about and talked a lot about the two starters are really good. Hill Green and Bentley are playing really good football. But behind them, all of a sudden in the last few weeks, you've had Trevor Woods and Jeremiah Brown decide to redshirt. Now they're still with the team and practicing, but Johnny
Mhm.
Chaney now is gone, and so that's three veteran depth pieces at inside linebacker that are no longer. Well, Chaney's not with the team, but three guys are no longer going to help you on game day, and so you're kind of down to a couple of guys. You got Jalen Wester, Brendan Gant, who has not really played yet for CU much, and then you got your walk-ons, and so they're a little bit thin at inside linebacker. I think that's more the bigger concern.
That might be the one thing that could potentially pull Keaton Wade out of a potential redshirt this year. When he mentioned
Yeah,
that to us on Tuesday, I was thinking that's a great idea for you. You're a junior right now. You don't want to be a senior next year when you're just kind of hitting your stride. He made
yeah,
some plays at Kentucky, dealt with an injury earlier this year. Like couple of years, Keaton Wade could be an NFL guy, but you really got to stay healthy and stay on the field. But he practiced at inside linebacker a little bit before he moved back out to the edge. And so that's maybe where some added depth could come in. But no, I
yeah,
agree with you. I think when you look at that, and even on the O line, if there's some injuries there and you're playing for some really important things at the end of November going into December, you'd like to have those guys bought in. But if you're also on the other hand kind of thinking like if these guys are not going to be great locker room guys, you don't really want them around anyway.
yeah.
Kind of splitting both ends of it there, but I think Keaton Wade would be kind of your emergency option there inside linebacker if something were to happen with some injuries at that position.
Yeah, I guess the other one, center wise, we saw Hank Zolinskas have kind of a rough game the other day
Yeah.
against Arizona, some snap issues, and they brought in Cash Cleveland, who did a nice job. And obviously, it's clear that he's a team favorite, and the Sanders family loves him. And he's a true freshman walk on though, and that's where I think losing Akiri Walker is a big one. Like he was one when he came here, I was a little bit like, well, why would you come here? They've already got a starting center. He left a starting job to come here. It didn't feel like he was ever going to be that guy, but that's maybe where a depth piece can come in there. And not saying Cash can't get it done, but you're a little depleted there at center now, and it is depth. And once you're getting deep into a season, that's where maybe you're looking at some of these things and saying, boy, they really can't afford some injuries at certain spots.
Well, at least gone are the days of Didi Goodson and Jason Espinoza, getting so, it is good. You're seeing some of these guys leave, and now all of a sudden you talk about depth issues versus it being a constant concern, literally
Right.
every snap of every game that you play. So,
Now, come on, Adam. Espinoza Island was fun.
it was fun. He intercepted Matt Barkley, who is the other one, in back to back. Luke Foles in back to back weeks,
Nick
right?
Foles.
It's
Nick Foles.
Nick
Yeah.
Foles, yeah.
Yeah.
So he had his moment, but I guess it should have been more focused on Didi Goodson. He was not meant to be out there at nickelback in that football game against USC. But
Right.
no,
And for context, for Buff fans that weren't around then, those were two guys that were like slot type receivers that were having to play corner for the Buffs early in the Pac-12 days because they were so depleted.
yeah. So we're at least not in that realm, right?
Right.
Covering Colorado. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, you'd like everybody to be bought in and for you, Kerry Walker, to be okay being the backup. But maybe when Cash Cleveland goes in there before you, maybe that, I don't know when this all transpired, but it was interesting listening to Coach Prime talk about Cash Cleveland. He said that he had no reps against the first or second team
Yeah.
in practice last week, and he gets in the game, and what is he doing? He's pointing this way, pointing
Yeah.
that way, directing. So you can tell the want-to factor is really important to him, and he's really well liked, which can go quite a ways as long as you're backing it up on the field.
Yeah, one last thing on that center situation is watching the broadcast, people that question Shadeur Sanders as a leader. Uh, I loved that moment in the broadcast where when they brought Cash Cleveland and they made that switch, and I can't remember who the silent reporter was, Allison Williams, maybe,
Yeah.
for the game. She did a silent report saying, "Hey, I was standing behind there. Shadeur Sanders went up to Hank Zelinskas, put his arm around him, and was encouraging and saying, 'Hey, man, I know it's been a rough day, but I believe in you. Don't worry about this. You're going to get it back.'" And so anybody that questions Shadeur Sanders as a leader, which I don't, I've heard so many stories like that. That's what Shadeur does, and I'm expecting Hank Zelinskas to still be the starter this week. But I would expect him to be better. And you love to hear that from your quarterback, that he's that guy in the silence in those tough moments, because he was showing frustration with Hank Zelinskas a little bit on the field, but then to hear that on the sideline, he's like, "Hey, you're fine. Don't worry about it. You're a good player."
Yeah, I think anybody that's questioned Shadeur Sanders' leadership just doesn't understand young people.
Right.
It's a bunch of
They're the people that don't want to like this program at all.
right,
Yeah.
100%. But it really is, and you're still in this camp for a little while, Brian. It's a bunch of 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds that are saying what leadership looks like to them.
Yeah.
And for young people, it might look different than it does for us that are older in age. And it might
Yeah.
be, you know, us in the media room, we sometimes wait a long time for these Tuesday press conferences. We're throwing barbs in a fun, jokeful way towards each other. And sometimes that's camaraderie.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Right.
always look the way that you expect it to. And Shadeur Sanders has been, by all accounts, a really good leader for this football team.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it firsthand going back to I've referenced going to that Celebration Bowl a lot because it was my first really good look at this program. But I saw it then when they lost that game, and they gave me some access to go into the locker room, things like that. And it was Shadeur that brought the team together in the locker room after that loss. Didn't have to do that, but brought them all together and talked to the team about you know keep your head up and things like that. And that was the end of a season, and he knew he was leaving, but it was him that brought the team together. So I saw it, and he was a sophomore then. So yeah, I don't question Shadeur Sanders as a leader, and I thought that was a cool story from the broadcast the other day. Something that we didn't see, at least I didn't see because I'm so busy writing, especially in a blowout fourth quarter, that I didn't notice that. So yeah.
Hank Zelinskas, by the way, is a really good football player.
Yes, he
And
is.
again, it kind of goes back to the Shiloh Sanders thing the week before. Uh, you have to allow for young people in college to have a bad game and
Yeah.
not just try to replace them immediately. And I
Yeah.
think Hank Zelinskas is going to come out tomorrow night and have a really good game against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think so. And you love when that happens in a 34-7 win as opposed to a loss. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's get back to the game here. The Buffs and Bearcats. I mean, two teams that again they profile fairly similarly. I mean, you look at statistically, defensively, they're both within a couple points of each other what they're allowing. I think offensively, it's CU averaging 31 points a game, Cincinnati 30. So they're pretty close. They don't do it the same way, obviously, but there's a lot of similarities between these two teams.
Yeah, no, again, going back to initial thought there of they're just not going to beat themselves. This is one of those
Yeah,
teams like a North Dakota State, like a Kansas State, that you're going to have to play a good brand of football to beat them. And that's kind of how their season's played out. When other teams have played really well against them, they've gotten a couple losses.
yeah,
When those other teams have made some mistakes, Cincinnati will find a way to take advantage of that. They have yeah, it's not like jump off the page type players offensively, but it's a really solid couple running backs, an efficient quarterback, a tight end that can create some mismatches. It just
yeah,
is a good team, and offensively they're going to get the ball out quickly. So this is going to be a tough week for Vincent Dancy and that edge group to be able to put a lot of pressure on there because they will get the ball out there quickly. At times, and maybe somebody will refute this, but like at times I've turned into Cincinnati without kind of the crazy tempo, but it's remind me a little bit of what Sean Lewis was trying to implement at Colorado with some of their schemes offensively. And if you're not ready to take on that challenge, it can be a problem defensively, just solid. And yeah, this is a game that I think Colorado should win by double digits. We'll get into our prediction later,
yeah.
but that's going to take Colorado showing up when they have not played all that great in these late window games. But it's family weekend. It's going to be a rowdy crowd, hopefully not too rowdy, but it should be a fun environment. And this is a game that if Colorado shows up and if Travis Hunter is healthy like he says he is, then this is going to be a game I think Colorado should be able to win semi convincingly.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's interesting. I'm trying to think, like, I don't know how to put it, but like, there's times this year what I've noticed with this team is it seems like when people doubt them on certain things, they come out and they answer the bell on that thing, right? So like, there was and just overall, there was a lot of doubt about this team after the Nebraska game. They come out and have a really nice, convincing win against Colorado State. Then they go on the road. There's some how they going to do on the road. They're a big 14-point underdog. Well, they come out and play their best game of the year at UCF, and it just seems like when there's little things that like they were an underdog last week at Arizona, and then they go out and beat them. I feel like with this one, when Coach Prime acknowledges something, it seems like that fixes as well, right? They acknowledge the run game needed to get fixed after Nebraska. Well, they've concentrated on it, and it's been a lot better. He acknowledged this week, yeah, we don't play as well in night games. We play better in day games, and we're going to make some adjustments. I just feel like, again, I don't know if I'm articulating it well, but like it seems like when they acknowledge something that they're deficient in and then focus on it, they are pretty good at it. Does that make sense? And so like I expect them to play better at night this week than they have the previous times because they've acknowledged it and they're doing things to fix it.
Yeah, starting fast has been another thing they've tried to acknowledge, and it didn't
Yeah.
click right away. We're starting to kind of see it creep in a little bit,
Yeah.
especially defensively. I feel like defensively, they're much better out of the gates than they were at the beginning of the season.
Right.
Offensively, maybe last week was the springboard for that because early in that first drive at Arizona, we're kind of looking at each other like, this is the first drive that Colorado's been putting out there, and it's not
Yeah.
not pretty. And then all of a sudden, that long play down to Western, it was like, okay, that maybe they've gotten over that hump. But that in night games, I think, are a couple of things with this team and kicking the ball into the darn end zone, as Coach Prime said. They are not able to do that, and clearly he wants to make that a challenge as well to this team.
Well, that one, there's only so much you can do. I just don't think they're going to be able to do that. I mean, that's just one that he's been saying that since last year, and I don't think they have the legs on this team to do that consistently. It just, I mean, they've used four different guys, and Mata doesn't kick off. He never did it. I think he might have done it once or twice at Jackson, but he's never been a kickoff guy. So I just think they got to live with that part of it. But
Their
yeah,
kicks are always better at the beginning of the game.
yes.
Is that just a fatigue thing? Is there something else? Like I've got a treadmill, I can bring that to the sidelines, and like, do they need to like walk to keep their legs warm to be able to continue that? Because they've shown though that like they can at least a couple times. Even
Yeah.
Feely before he got hurt, he would get the first couple in the end zone, and then it just gets shorter and shorter. Is that just you only have so many big kicks in that leg?
I don't know what it is. I mean, they have the exercise bike on the sideline, and we don't need to
Okay.
talk about kickers and exercise bikes on the sideline. Um, go back to 2016, but
That's a throwback comment
that's a
there.
throwback comment. But yeah, hey, as we're comparing things to 2016, there maybe that's fitting. But no, I don't know what it is because the kickoff guys, that's all they do is kick off. It's not like they're I could understand it if it was like you just had to kick the extra point or just had to kick the field goal, and now you're running out there and having to kick off. But when that's the only thing you do, um, it's puzzling, because Stoyanovich his first couple times, I think it was K-State, right? He goes out and um, puts the first couple to the end zone, and then from then on they're landing at like the 5. So I'll be curious to see who kicks off this week because I was telling you a couple weeks ago during the bye week we went up to Estes Park as a family and happened to run into Christian Palazzo, who was taking engagement pictures with his fiance, and ended up chatting with him a little bit. And he's been hurt, but he told me then he thought he'd be back for Arizona, which he was not. But I wonder if he's back this week. And he was their guy. If it wasn't Feely, it was Palazzo. So I wonder if he's healthy enough, if it's back to him or not. But we'll see. Who knows who's going to kick off? But yeah, we spent a lot
One
of time
la-
talking about kickoffs.
well, one last amateur piece of advice here.
Yeah,
When I sometimes I'll watch those well-off media videos and I hear Damian Lewis's voice from I don't even know where he is. Sometimes I feel like he's on the other side of the field and you can still hear him
yeah.
yelling at his team. Maybe he should just add kickoff specialist, uh, somebody that just pumps them up before they go out to his
Kickoff
job
specialist
title.
motivator.
Motivator. That's
There
the
you
word
go.
I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I don't think if Damian Lewis, I think if Damian Lewis was yelling at me, I'd get it in the end zone somehow.
That might not be bad. I mean, Coach Prime on the coaches show this week was talking about because Damian Lewis is on the show and he told Mark Johnson, he goes, well, get your bleep button ready. But he also joked and said, no, he's in here, he should be okay. But once he's got grass under his feet, he's a different guy. And so, yeah, maybe he is the guy. Maybe intimidator is the word. Kickoff specialist intimidator. You get Damian Lewis, go up to whoever's kicking off, get in their face, scream at him for 30 seconds, and then let him go put one through the end zone.
Kicker talk is always good for views, huh?
That's right. Well, let's get off kicker talk and let's do our predictions. What do you think for this week?
I kind of teased this a little bit earlier, Brian. I think that Colorado is the better football team at home,
Yeah.
and we want to see these consecutive weeks of putting things together, and they've just largely as a football team been more consistent since the second half of that Nebraska game. But you haven't sometimes seen some of the things follow from one game to the next right off the bat. And so that's the thing that I expect to see from Colorado. In part of me is scorned covering this team for so long and having these bowl eligible games where Colorado comes out and loses. But again, it's a new day and age, a new mentality within this Colorado team. I feel like
Yeah.
I need to stop comparing this second year of the Coach Prime experiment to some of the things we've covered in the past. And so that leads me to think that they get that 6th win going into the bye week. And I'm going to say they win this game 38-27.
Okay. Yeah. And you're right. A lot of those things that happened were maybe 2 coaching staffs ago, but there is, I'm a stat guy, you know that, but like it is 11 straight games they've lost when playing for bowl eligibility. I don't count 2020 because that was bowl eligibility was if
We
you
we
want to play
we
in a bowl
we
game.
were there. If you were there, then you know
Right,
why we're
right,
not
right.
counting
So
that.
I'm not counting that one, but it is 11 straight, and those were all before 2020. So that was a couple coaching staffs ago. That was actually 2, 3 coaching staffs ago. But this coaching staff and this team has a chance to break that streak and prove that they're different, which I think they are. I think they go out and get a win this week. But I also have some respect for Cincinnati. I think a lot of the things you can say about Colorado, you can say about Cincinnati, as far as like I see the Buffs growing confidence. You know, a team that came in with outside low expectations, but as they exceed those, they're gaining confidence. I think the same is happening with Cincinnati. So I give them some respect. The fact that they have not been blown out, they've been in every single game, and you could argue they should have won every game, but they didn't. So I don't think Cincinnati's going to come in here and get blown out. I think it's going to be a good football game, but I like Colorado to win this thing 30-24.
All right. It would be nice to go into the bye week and be
Yeah.
able to then and think about what's kind of the ceiling is, because I think that's what this team needs is just that extra jump of, okay, you're bowl eligible now, but a conference championship is still within the picture. So
Yeah, it'd be nice to have the bowl eligibility out of the way, then spend all of November trying to get Peggy to that nice bowl game.
yes, she's sophisticated, Brian.
She's sophisticated. She's a lady, as Coach Prime said, and Miss Peggy doesn't want any bowl game, and so I think they're bowl eligible, and they spent all of November getting her to a nice one and being in contention. So, yeah, it's gonna be fun out there. Another late one. I think it's gonna be a chilly one too. By the time it kicks off and by the time it ends.
Well, I will take that over UCF. Y'all saw the
Yes.
evidence there. So
Yeah, no sweating on that one. But hey, I'll see you on Saturday night.
sounds good, Brian. Thank you.